I'm the board chair of a small nonprofit with 5 staff and 8 board members. One of our staff members asked a board member to breakfast on 2 occasions without notifying the executive director. The first meeting occurred and sensitive info was shared. The second meeting is upcoming. I'm curious to know whether in small nonprofits it's okay for this type of communication between staff and board members. Even if it's just a social breakfast, is there still a boundary being crossed?
I have a lot of questions to your questions for the person who wrote in about this. So, I'm curious to know, what sensitive information was shared, if this was a first-time thing, what was the motivation? Like, I'm curious to know why the staff member chose to meet with the board member. Was it like a project or a committee assignment or something? Like, is the staff member on a committee that the board member's on and they had work to, like, anyway, there's a lot of questions. So my apologies for not being able to give anything that's real concrete or specific. I guess I would just say, sadly, it depends. I think a lot of this depends on a few things. I think that if the motivation for the breakfast was to undermine the executive director or to, speak negatively, then obviously that's not appropriate. Like and sometimes I don't know if staff always know that, if that makes sense. I mean, I think they're hopefully smart enough and intuitive enough that staff know that's not cool, but sometimes they don't. They don't understand exactly the board's role. They don't feel like they have a sounding board. So I feel like there's sometimes where it starts is educating the board and the staff on when there's a problem, if you have a question, if you have a challenge, like what is the way to approach that and address that, and what is not appropriate. And I think board members sometimes need this too, because board members, I know so many board members who get caught off guard, right? They have a staff member who reaches out and it's under the guise of one thing, and then it ends up being just a complaining session about the boss or the leader, right? And the board members in this really okay, like I'm here, I'm stuck here. What do I do with this? And so like in that situation, right, what should happen is a board member, if it went down that path, a board member needs to be like, hey, like, have you tried having the conversation with your boss? Because this just actually isn't, it's not appropriate to come to me. There is, opportunities maybe for feedback when we do a performance review or whatever, where we solicit staff feedback. But this is really something you kind of need to work out with them directly. Of course, again, now, Andy, you know where I'm going with this, like where I'm going to go is then there's the whistleblower, like if it's something egregious, right? If this is like harassment or, embezzlement or something that rises to the level that discrimination that like is a whistleblower governance policy, like issue, then this all goes out the window. So I'm sorry to be so like, if this, then that, but it's kind of like that, right? It's like, if this, then that, if this, then that. In general, if it's general complaints about a style or management style, oh, my boss is never in the office. Like, how many staff say that because they don't understand executive directors out there trying to bring in money, especially of a smaller organization, and is out there meeting, oh, they're never here. Wow, must be nice to have their job, right? Like, how many times have we heard that sort of sentiment? And so that's where you have to have strong lines between the board knowing that's not appropriate to continue that dialogue. That needs to be stopped. And then staff need to know that's not appropriate. Go to the board. If you have questions about that, go and talk to your leader, which I know is sometimes incredibly uncomfortable, but there's ways to couch it. So for me, I listen to this and I go, gosh, like, I'm not sure what sensitive information was shared with the board member, but I guess I'm just going to, I don't know, assume maybe it was something like that. And I also think it's okay. I mean, I think back to when I worked at a nonprofit and it was smaller, there was a small team of us. I oftentimes interacted with board members without the executive director present. But I also knew that it was about, like, there was some deliverable we were trying to work on together, or the board member needed to be briefed for a committee meeting, or the board member had questions that like, and it wasn't like we were doing this in secrecy and hiding this from the executive director. I think that's the other thing, is just like the minute you start thinking I have to sort of sneak this meeting in behind the ED's back, there's probably a larger issue. So anyways, there's a lot of layers here, but those are some of my initial thoughts. Andy.
Yeah. I mean, you stole my thunder with the whistleblower policy.
Sorry.
So, I mean, that was my first instinct was, well, if you don't have a whistleblower policy, then there's very little you can do about this, because it feels like this is the exact kind of scenario that a whistleblower policy is designed to circumvent.
Yes.
Is to make it so that kind of thing doesn't happen and it's confusing. One of the reasons that Stacey and I are both so serious about the executive director. I mean, there's an assumption in this question that the executive director is the single point of contact between the board and the staff, and every communication between them the executive needs to be aware of that communication, unless it's a whistleblower problem, right? That's the only time that you get to go around the executive director. Here, and I think the reason that Stacey and I are so firm about that is because this is not the scenario that we're worried about, where staff are just like rogue going to board members and asking things. It's the other way around. It's when the board member starts telling staff what to do, which is a recipe for absolute and complete chaos. Like, you need to have someone who's responsible for the decision making, and that's what the executive director's role is. And the executive director is the filter between the board, who very frequently has crazy ideas, and the staff, who is like, feels like they've got no power to say no to someone that is their boss's boss's boss, right? That's where you have this power dynamic problem, which is why we're so firm about there has to be this one like firewall in between those two groups. For me, if this were my organization, so say I'm the executive director in this situation, I'm trying to put myself in the place of this person.
Yeah.
If I'm the executive director in this situation, I think me being the sort of direct, maybe person with low emotional intelligence would just bring the staff member into my office and say, so you went and had breakfast with the board chair. Why? Right. So just like be completely like, I know about it. Tell me what you're talking about so that I can make sure that I understand what's going on. So if it's a whistleblower issue, let's deal with that. Right. If you have to tell them something because you think something bad's going on and you think I'm involved, great. I'm sorry we didn't already have a whistleblower policy. I've already written one and handed it to you. So this is what we need to use from here going out forward. Otherwise, it either needs to stop or you need to have me involved. Like, those are your three options. Whistleblower, knock it off, or I'm in it. Right. So that's what I would do. But then again, no, people don't like me that much. So.
But I think that's a really direct, straightforward way. And what you're trying to do in that situation, Andy, is just understand like what it was. Yeah. Like what was the sort of intent of the breakfast? Like, and trying to just, and I always think these things strike home the most when you can bring it back to a way the staff member understands, to be able to say to them, gosh, like, if you have a large enough staff, and depending on the position, if you said, gosh, if the person you supervise skipped over you and had breakfast with me as the executive director, like, without you knowing this was going on and without anything, like what questions would come up? And it's funny because people start to go, oh, now I get it, right? Like, it's that same sort of sense of like, am I going over? Not that it's unacceptable, but like, it's just about like, hey, heads up, right? Because like in a good situation, you'd be like, I'd be as a staff member, hey, I'm going to meet with so-and-so on the board. We're talking about X. Is there anything you want me to run by them? Right? Like that's what the culture you want. But to your point, Andy, how many times do board members not understand, or they're so used to like managing or leading people in their own professional lives that they get into that mode and say, oh, here's these 3 assignments. Oh, can you do my work for me as like the board chair, right? Can you do this for me? And start assigning and like delegating. And it's like, no. So yes, for those listening, Andy and I have there's a lot of these things that can get pretty sticky pretty quickly if you're not like, but again, I go back to, Andy, don't you think this is a fair thing to say? Like, if you are the first time working, or not even the first time, if you have never been told as a staff member, like, not that it's like explained a whistleblower policy, explained the way you deal with things if you have a complaint or a concern, if you don't have a process for that, if you don't share that, and if you're a board member and you're first time board member, people don't know. I don't think they're doing it always. There's some exceptions, right? But I don't think they're always doing it to be jerks. I think it's just lack of sometimes understanding or knowledge or awareness of like kind of the roles of every party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, explaining the purpose of like why there's that firewall, what that's for. I mean, it really is to, like you said, it's to protect the staff member, because there's such a power differential between a board member and a staff member that you don't want to put somebody in a position where they're doing something they don't feel comfortable with, or they're, your job as the executive director is to make sure that that person is not put in weird situations. So that's, that's maybe another way to couch it. That's a little bit less like, I caught you or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board. Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing. Nonprofit resources.
Welcome to Nonprofit Everything, the podcast where hosts Andy Shurick and Stacey Wedding answer your questions about all things nonprofit.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nonprofit Everything. Sometimes when we're doing these intros, I like to use things that are around my office for inspiration to try to say something fun or witty, because it just doesn't naturally happen, sadly. So I have this little postcard that has this guy like lifting these huge, like 230-pound weights with one arm, one hand, and it says, "Make a ruckus." So I want to know, for all of you listening, what are you making a ruckus about right now? Like in your world, in your life, in your nonprofit, in the nonprofit that you work for? And Andy, what are you making a ruckus about right now?
Oh, I know. So the day we're taping this is what I'm making a ruckus about. The day we're taping this is actually the Eurovision second semifinal.
Oh.
So I don't know if you saw, there's that movie that was out on Netflix a few years ago with Will Ferrell, about the Univision Song Contest. Or sorry, not Univision.
No.
Eurovision Song Contest. I keep saying Eurovision. The Eurovision Song Contest. So it's like, it's been going on since the 1960s. It's super cheesy, but it's so much fun. It is absolutely a blast to watch. And so tonight's second semifinal. Saturday is the final. It's on at like noon. So that's what our whole family is absolutely overjoyed that it's Eurovision week.
Okay, I love it. I would never have thought of that as something you'd make a ruckus about, but you know what? That's why it's kind of fun. I feel like everyone needs to now tell us what they're making a ruckus about. I was sitting there trying to think of, like, as I asked the question, I was like, what am I making a ruckus about? I generally don't make a ruckus about much because I am a consummate people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I am making a ruckus on the pickleball courts. Not really, but pretending to. I tried pickleball for the first time the other day. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I now think I want to make a ruckus on the court because, show people what this girl can do out there. So anyway, so we'll see. I'll let you know how that goes a little later on.
Let me know how that goes. I've seen it. I haven't played it. I don't know that I will.
Oh, well, how about I challenge you to a match? We could do a podcast live from the pickleball courts. That could be kind of fun.
You'd probably destroy me. Yeah, I bet you would win. Our nonprofit is 6 years old, and we're hosting our 4th annual fundraiser in 1 month. Ticket sales are very slow, and we're having trouble finding sponsors. It feels like we've exhausted all our resources, and we would appreciate strategies and new ways to help sell tickets and gain sponsorships. So far, we've made personal invitations to donors, emails to community partners, promotion on our website, social media and newsletters, and word of mouth. What am I missing? What else can we do to create awareness and hype about this event?
Oh, so many thoughts on this one, and I will try to tailor my thoughts. So, okay. first I'm going to say this, easier said from my seat than yours, but I do think trying not to panic. And the reason I say this is there is this tendency, and it's actually, if you talk in the circles of development professionals and people in the world of events and trying to, do sort of any kind of revenue generation, they will tell you, particularly with events, they seem like it seems like we're getting more and more becoming this economy that waits to, or like becoming this sort of public that waits to the last minute to see if we get something better, right? Like a better offer, or like, I'm going to wait till the last second, which is awful, right? Awful, but for you and your stress levels. But I guess I just want you to also know you're not alone, because even some of the really large successful events that are out there, like, run into oftentimes similar problems. So first, you're not alone. As far as strategies, gosh, I feel like the largest strategy is this event really something you want to do long term? But that's not your immediate strategy. So, and that's not what you asked. So I feel like if you're looking at sort of quicker ways, I think phone calls, texts, if you have the message for people in your circles, asking maybe anyone in your circle, it could be board member, it could be fellow staff, it could be volunteers, it could be other donors. Ask them to bring a +1. And if no one's able to get someone to bring a +1 or pay for their guest ticket, then maybe you offer it as a comp, and you really look at it as sort of more an opportunity to kind of inform, educate, build awareness. It's the toughest thing with events, and there's so much competition for people's time these days. I think this is just getting tougher and tougher, particularly if you're competing against really well-known, established events that are the go-to that everyone puts on their calendar. It can just become tough. But I also think maybe not that quantity is better, not to get caught in the trap that quantity is better than quality. I think if you could create a format for the event that made every person walking through that event feel special in some way. And so if it turns into a more intimate event, I'm sure your event, the place you're hosting it, can try to do different things with the room to not make it feel as empty. But I think you can use that as a moment to actually build deeper, more one-on-one connections, which Andy and I have talked about this before. There's a lot of events or galas where, you hear, oh, we raised $1 million. And then when you hear about what they netted, maybe it was $300,000 after all the expenses, or 400 or whatever. And after that, there's nothing done to figure out how to build a long-term relationship with those people who were in the room, or try to invite them in to learn more about your organization, or try to build a true relationship. That is what true long-term development is built on. So I guess I would say, the +1 strategy is one way. The invite a guest that's comped is another way, even though I know that you'll potentially lose money on that. But then thinking about what do you do with the people in the room to make it a special experience, make them feel special, and then literally create that long-term relationship that so many others don't do. So anyway, that's all I've got. I wish I had some magic to tell you, but I feel like that's all I've got. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I always come at it so one of the things that I used to be told very frequently when I would complain about events is that, well, it's not the money necessarily. We're making relationships with people. It's a friend raiser, right? We just want people to come in and be able to talk about our mission. And for me, that felt like, well, this seems like a really expensive way to do that, and one that doesn't really connect with our mission very, very well. I do have a confession to make, though. I went to a gala event 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I loved it. Ooh. It was so well done. It is the first gala event that I've gone to in my entire life that I was like, this was worth my evening. And
Ooh.
I think it was fantastic.
Okay, you need to share a little more on this, because
So from a nonprofit professional's perspective, from Andy with his sort of CFO hat on,
right?
I don't know that it was successful. So because my only communication with the nonprofit was the constant text message reminders leading up to the event that I needed to give them a credit card so that I could participate in the silent auction.
Yep.
That's the only communication I had about anything
Yeah.
having to do with this organization. But the dinner was spectacular. It was in an absolutely unbelievable environment that you could never access without being part of this gala event. So it was incredibly special. It was just like, for me, it felt like just going to a really nice dinner with some people that were very friendly. And for me, that was like, this is exactly what I needed tonight, right? It was absolutely perfect. And we did buy something at the silent auction because we're suckers. And it was also, and it was Andy's hot tip on silent auctions, art. If there's art there, nobody's going to bid on it because everybody thinks it's terrible. But if it isn't terrible, you can get it from whatever the list price is. So we got art at the low bid, which we love. It's super fantastic. It's a local artist who does some really cool stuff. So we ended up spending a little bit of silent auction money. So they got some money from us. But like in terms of long-term relationship with the nonprofit, like they did no work. They did zero work. But it was a fantastic event and I loved it. So it doesn't answer the question at all. Because for me, when they have that event next year, I'm going to go. Why? Because it was a cool night. I really enjoyed it. There was no sad, it was great. There was no sad donor story. There was no terrible entertainment. There was no irritating live auctioneer who thought he was funny. Like none of that. Was just a really nice, quiet dinner in a really nice place. It was great. So yeah. That's me, right? Like I'm obviously an outlier. But so what that means is if you can't get people to come to your event because it's fun, you have to get people to come to your event for a different reason. So if the money isn't important to you, if like for this nonprofit, clearly the money isn't, they don't need me for the money, I guess. Just me showing up is enough for them. They've decided. And for me, that's enough as well. Like I'm not an annual donor there. I'm not going to give them money, at the end of the year. They may send me direct mail. I'll probably open it, look at it and throw it away because I do that. And I'll go to their gala event next year, right? Because that gala event is what hooked me, not the mission of the organization, not how amazing it is, right? So if you've got a gala event and you can't get anybody to come, your first question is like, well, why? Why aren't people showing up?
Right.
Like, and so that's the question you have to answer. And it might be, it's boring, it's slow, it makes people feel sad instead of happy. You've got a conflict with other things that are going on that night. There may be, I don't know, important basketball game or something that everybody's going to want to go to instead. There might be hockey playoffs. If you're in Las Vegas, like God forbid, you've got anything scheduled in the next few weeks as the Golden Knights are still in the Stanley Cup playoffs, brutal. Right? Like, so yeah. So like you've got all these, like you said, you've got all of these competing priorities and people are weighing. They're like, what am I going to do on my Saturday night? Which thing is more important to me? So you have to make it worth their while. If you're going to go into the party business, you have to be really good at parties. So some of the ways that organizations that don't have like a lot of where the ticket price, and this is where I get into sort of the money side of it. So if it is the money piece that you're looking at, the ticket price may be too high and you're not selling people on the ancillary activities. Maybe you've decided that we're going to make it so that you can only buy a table, a 10 top, which is a lot of people. If you've sat at a 10 top, there's somebody that's really far away from you that you can't have a conversation with, because they're behind the centerpiece that somebody gets to take home, right? So like it's not a nice way to have a conversation with people at a 10 top. It may be like, $2,500 for the 10 top or $10,000 for the 10 top or something like that. So you may have priced yourself out on the market there, which is why people aren't coming. So you kind of have to look at it from a product perspective. Like, why isn't it that people want to come to our gala? And then figure that out. And then I think you'll have your answer. I don't think you can fix it in a month. I don't think you're gonna, I think Stacey's ideas of just like, maybe you just comp it and then like call this year a wash, maybe figure out a way that you can get people to upsell within the thing so that you don't lose a ton of money. But you got to look at the product first. And if your product is a gala event, it has to attract people like me who are just like, I'm going to go because I'm going to go.
It really does. And I want to share something that I actually thought was super cool. I was recently at a conference and one of the speakers spoke. Her name is Tammy Zonker, and she anyone who is listening to this should go check her out, because she does some really cool things related to immersive donor experiences. And she actually talked about how you can embed these, whether it's a one-on-one visit with a donor or whether it's something as large as an event. And so the easy example she gave a couple of really cool examples that weren't like the obvious ones that we all probably go, well, that sounds nice, but I don't have that kind of mission. One of those was, the idea of trying to bring in, so it's not just, we've always heard about try to make your donors kind of, have this experience where they feel your mission, that they hear the story that brings them in, draws them in. This is about make your donor part of the story. And how do you do that, right? Like, how do you bring them in so they either get to see for a moment in time what it might be like to be visually impaired by having, she talked about, right, like a gala where they literally, like, the gala is set in a room where you walk in and the room is dark, like very dark, and it's hard to see. And it's sort of like a symbolic, the whole thing has symbolism. Then you sit down at your table and there's actually a little table captains at each table, but you have a blindfold and you're asked to put the blindfold on, and your eating experience is like this. And they're trying to just bring you into, this is a moment in time. And there's some careful, like she was talking about it, making sure it's done in a way that it doesn't like exploit or manipulate a situation. But it was a really powerful reminder of like, that kind of experience will stick with people. She shared another example that I think is probably not a gala kind of thing. It could be maybe, but that was not a sexy organization, that it was very much an organization. I don't even remember the mission, right? But it was about like, in order to get, for people this organization serves to get any kind of help they need, they like have to go through, 75 pages of paperwork that they have to fill out, right? Which we all know, like this very bureaucratic nightmare. And this whole organization is built around, like the mission is built around human-centered design of systems to make systems more accessible to people by like, how do we reduce and make things more efficient so we can get people, like how many people don't get the services they need because they see those 75 pages and they go, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do that. And so this organization, like, how do you sell that, right? How do you make that an immersive donor experience? What they did, it was brilliant. They literally took the 75 pages or whatever that you have to fill out. They printed them and found out a way to attach them all to each other, and they rolled it. They had one person stand on one side and another person stand on another and like roll it out across the stage to show this is what the average person that we are trying to help serve and make service and needs and supports they need more accessible to them. This is what we're trying to tackle, is getting like reducing this to something more approachable. So it's a very visual kind of like, just, it really brought it home. And even watching her do it during the conference session was just like eye-opening, because you go, gosh, I'm sure for years that organization was like, how do we make this sexy? Because it's the biggest thing you and I hear, Andy, right? Is an organization going, I don't help puppies. I don't help babies. Like, I don't have this thing or this thing where I could do like blindfold you, right? Like, but I've got this way to sort of show our mission. It could be something fun and enlightening, like, okay, we throw a camp every year. We have a program, and part of the programming involves these little empowerment activities for the girls we serve. And you have everyone at your event like go through one of those activities because you're like bringing the mission to life. And so I got really excited about it because I thought, think of what nonprofits could do if they could take some of their brilliant programming and find a way to actually connect that in the room at an event or a one-on-one donor visit or whatever it looks like, to try to like helps the other person understand just for a moment. They'll never fully understand it, but a little bit understand like what is actually what your organization's doing. So I don't know if you are like, I feel like sometimes you and I depart on these kinds of things, Andy. So you might be like rolling your eyes at me. I thought it was cool. So
I think like for me, I find that the conversations that are most productive with donors are ones where the donor already feels empathetic towards the people that you're serving. And so your job is not to insult them by reminding them that they're problems. Your job is to cultivate their empathy by showing that what you're doing is providing solutions. So hunger, again, food banks are too easy. I have to use it as an example because that's the only thing I know. We don't tell people what it's like to be hungry. Like, so, and they do it all the time. Like they used to do the SNAP challenge where you would have to like try to get through a week just by spending the amount of money that a normal person gets on a SNAP beneficiary. And it's really hard to do. It's not very effective from a donor perspective because number one, okay, we get it. If you don't have any money, you can't buy any food. There's no reason to make me go through that process. And feeling hungry is not going to make me predisposed to help someone who isn't hungry. Instead, you need to talk about, this is Steve. He's a second grader at the elementary school. His family is, for whatever reason, incapable of feeding the entire family. So part of they rely on the bag of food that Steve gets at school that he brings home every week, that they share over the weekend because he doesn't have access to the free breakfast and free lunch that he gets at school Monday through Friday. For somebody that's already predisposed to help you, a story like that, where you're imagining like not what it would be like for you to be a kid, but imagining what this kid's life is like, that is what drives people to be more interested in participating. Like we are helping this situation get fixed, not, boy, wouldn't it be? I mean, and I'm in a bad mood today anyway, but blindfolding me does not make me feel like I'm blind. Blindfolding me does not give me the sense of being visually impaired, right? I think I can understand what the life of someone who cannot see is like and decide whether or not that's something that I want to help out with without me having to close my eyes.
Yeah.
I think that's right. It's like I don't need that personal feeling to be able to express empathy towards someone else who's in that situation. And I me personally feel a little insulted when someone thinks that that's the only way I can get it. Like the only way you're going to really understand being blind is if I poke your eyes out.
I don't disagree with anything you said. And I think you are still a unique unicorn here because I think there are several people like you, right? And so, but I also think there are times where people go, God, I can't even imagine. And you're not trying to insult like the actual people you're serving by saying, okay, like now they know what it feels like to be like blind, right? You're sort of saying, this is just one moment in time. And clearly we can't even begin to show you like what the challenges are, but it's something that sticks. I think this is what I'm trying to get at is like trying to figure out whether it's the story you shared, Andy, whether it's this immersion experience. So what was funny is she was sharing about this whole thing and this one was hard for me because I go, well, who has this kind of budget? But like she's talking about how Charity Water actually has their whole, like they literally have almost like it's like a treadmill machine and it's got like there's this room you go into that is on one of their like at their administrative headquarters that literally you walk into this room and on all three walls is like it's like you're at that like a surround sound, like a surround movie theater where like everything's around you. And as you're walking on the treadmill, they're trying to like recreate the experience of you walking there alongside some of the people they serve who, you know, in impoverished countries who need water. And then along the way, they put these large huge buckets of water and tell you to walk and like hold the water. And anyways, but obviously this stuff works for a reason, I guess is my bottom line. Like whether you like it, whether you think it's a gimmick, whether you're like, no, that's insulting to me. I think there are many people out there it does work with. So I guess that also goes back to like, how do you know your donor base and how do you do it in a way that isn't insulting, but is actually sort of showcasing, I don't know, sort of however you want to bring your mission to life, I guess is the bottom line.
Thanks for joining us. So if you thought these were good questions, maybe these inspired you to think of your own good question, and you can send that to us at questions@nonprofiteverything.com or a myriad of other ways. Possibly the easiest is to go to nonprofiteverything.com. There's show notes for every show up there, as well as an Ask a Question button. So you could just click that and it will automatically get that to us. If you didn't like the questions, well, maybe you could do better. Why don't you prove to us that you're capable of that by clicking the
It's our challenge.
Ask a Question button, right? There's our challenge to you, is like, make the questions better. So send them to us, because that's what we answer, is what you send us. And we love it that you do. Thank you if you sent us a question. We absolutely appreciate you. I feel like early on in the podcast, Stacey and I decided to make all the questions anonymous. And we did that on purpose. We thought it was, at least I thought, I'm talking for Stacey now, of course, because I always do. But I thought that if we left them anonymous, people could be more honest. And I think that's what we've seen, haven't we?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it helps a lot. And we sometimes get, some pretty deep things, like questions or a bit of drama involved, or questions that just someone would be embarrassed otherwise to ask. And so I'm glad it's a safe place for people. That's what we try to do.
Yeah. But if you really need that adoration, you want us to talk about you and your smart question, just let us know. We will absolutely let you. You can either leave us a voicemail message and we can put your voice on the podcast asking us the question. That would be fancy, wouldn't it? Or we could just say who you are. So let us know that when you ask us a question.
Yeah, we can give you a shout out.
There's your challenge.